Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here we are in a week of Thanksgiving.
Good morning.
We're
Happy
excited
Tuesday.
about that. I know you're headed down to Maryland with your whole family, right? It's going to be down there?
Yeah, the whole crew. Josh and Emily will meet us there because they're in Delaware already. But Caleb and Olivia and Anna and Ryan will all load up in a vehicle and do the annual road trip. It'll be super fun. We do always try to sneak in a stop because we don't have Top Golf up here. There is a Top Golf en route to Maryland, and so we usually try to sneak in a little family competition there, which is always fun. Breaks up the road trip a little bit, but looking forward to spending time with everybody for sure.
When we did our leaders filming actually this summer, when we filmed our curriculum courses, another 10 of them actually, we played Top Golf. Remember that? And
yes, we were at your table. That was so much fun.
And I would say Dan and I are a little bit competitive, right?
Just a little bit. You guys were fun to watch, though.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. So as we've talked about the series of overcoming worry, fear, and anxiety, we can appreciate the fact that the world is getting crazier and crazier, and really part of what causes worry and fear, particularly, is uncertainty, that or unpredictability. That if it's the way we normally see things or experience things, even when you kind of go through, let's say, a decline or something happens, you think predictably, well, it'll come back to this or it'll be this, and
right.
it lessens your worry and fear. It doesn't mean it eliminates it, but it lessens it. When there's high unpredictability, now you don't know.
Right. And I do think that's really what COVID has brought in.
Yes.
A high level of unpredictability, and no one really knows what they can count on anymore at this point.
And there's analysts. I read financial analyst, economic analyst, and they. I noticed a word that they use: unprecedented. Well, this is unprecedented. In other words, we've never seen this before.
We haven't seen this before, right?
We've never seen this before, and this combination of things, therefore, is unpredictable because we don't really know the outcome of this, because we can't go back and use our models or use our traditional approach to say, well, this is where it's going to go, because they say it's unprecedented. Right. What's happened with inflation, what's happened with labor, what's happening with supply chain.
Right.
These are all things that are unprecedented.
Right.
That are
and things that
everybody.
Normally you can put some kind of pattern to, even when you look at business world, you look at the supply chain interruptions, you set up at the beginning of the year, you set up goals and that sort of, and you can't really count on what those goals are going to look like. Am I setting them accurately? Am I setting up the right benchmarks? Because supply chain could completely interrupt everything that we even see forecast in sales, things like that.
Right.
It's very interesting.
Right. And then how, because of all that, it's also the way we're treated with how we interact with businesses, and because of what's happened and the labor shortage, because of the government policies, is I don't know if you experience this, but if you go to a department store, it used to be that there's people at every cash register, there's people around helping you out, all that. Well, right now, it takes a while to find anybody.
Right.
And then when they are, there's a long line because they can't get through it quickly. And interesting enough, had a flat tire.
Oh no.
That Linda was driving. She wound up with a flat, and we have we have a car that gives you an indicator. You got a problem, with one of the tires. So, okay, we looked at it. It wasn't flat where I couldn't drive it. It was going flat.
Right.
So I took it to the store, the tire store, and basically I called them and said, can I set up an appointment? And they said, no.
Right.
Our next appointment is in 3 weeks. I said, well, I got a flat. I need this fixed. We're going on a trip up to Vail to do our retreat. Yeah, okay, bring it in. We'll try to get to it. And you're gonna have to leave it because probably all day long, because you won't be able to just stay and wait for it. Okay, so we do. So I bring it in and I go into the store, and there's a line of 8 people to get up to the counter because there's only one guy at the counter.
Right.
And they have a shortage of people, and their systems are struggling. And it's going to take a while, which again it's on top of, and what I'm talking about here is the frustration of that, is that, yep, that's the way things are going now. Yep, everything is going to be a struggle. Everything is, and then you go to, and again, this is what, and we're just talking about in a simple way, well, that's why you go to worry and fear, is everything going to now be really, really difficult to live and function? And hey, I'm going to need certain things that we can't get, or it's going to take a long time, or it's frustrating. So you're building up that what I call uncertainty. I wonder how this is going to play out. This could get worse, and so that lays on the aspect of fear, worry, and anxiety. So we're dealing in a world of high uncertainty right now.
Right.
And because of that, we can't predict the real problems we get, which is the cause of worry and fear, which, remember, God said, I understand that. Let me resolve it. Now, our thought, this is interesting. If we haven't learned to walk with God, as we now have difficult things get more intense, but we've never had them resolved much in the past, what is our thought? Well,
it's a very defeated.
Yeah, that it's. I expect it to get worse. I'm talking about my problems I expect to get worse because I've never seen them. I've never seen them resolved before, really. So I now am going to try to figure this out, but it's going to be difficult. And what God is saying is, we'll come and learn a new way. I will resolve it because this is cool. None of the scriptures that we read and none of that we understand, and you and I understand this, is limited to God's power. That He said, it doesn't matter. Nothing is too difficult for me. I can resolve this. It's not dependent on the awful situation in the world. I can resolve this now, and I'm going to give you a life and give it to you super abundantly. When in a really difficult place. And it doesn't, just because it might have been better before and it's getting worse now, that doesn't stop me from delivering your resolution. So, it's a matter of believe that He's the resolver. Last time we talked about learning to trust me. Blessed are those whose trust is the Lord, whose trust in the Lord. That it says, I'll give you the desires of your heart, which is when you're in trouble. And He describes it, when you're in trouble, I'll give you the desires of your heart, Psalm 20, which is what? I've got a problem.
Have resolution.
I need a resolution, not a generic thing, or not
but
give me the ability to just put up with it. It's no, I'll give you an answer to a specific solution. And then in Psalm 25, it says, I trust you, knowing that I'm not going to be disappointed, knowing that I'm not going to be put to shame, knowing that I don't put my false hope that you're going to resolve it, and then you really don't. No, I'm going to trust all the way through. You will bring resolution to this specific issue that I have in my life, which is causing me to, go to fear and worry. Okay, go to Psalm 37 and read verses 3 to 6. This is really a cool statement that he makes about this. Go to Psalm 37, 3 to 6.
Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday.
Yeah. So twice in there, it says, trust the Lord. Put your trust in the Lord. He will give you the desires of your heart. And again, when we're talking in this context, it's about I got a real problem, and I do need a resolution. And see, that's not. Let me say it a different way. It's not abnormal.
Right.
Well, because I'm a Christian, I shouldn't really worry about it, and whatever happens, happens, and I guess that's God's will. He says, no, it's normal of my creation that you got an issue, you got a problem, you need a resolution. That's the way we operate.
Right.
Everybody's driven that way. Now, the heart is what's going to either let God resolve it, or we're going to try to do it ourselves. And when we try to do it ourselves, it doesn't get resolved fully.
Right.
Or partially, or even could get worse. So then we attribute that to, well, I'm a believer and God's supposed to take care of me, but he's not. So, why can I trust him? And this desires of my heart, I mean, that seems self-centered anyway, so why would I even care about that? He says, no, I understand that a normal, healthy desire is you got a problem, you want a resolution. Trust me. And he says, if you trust me, what? I'll bring it to pass. Okay, bring what to pass?
The resolution. His resolution.
I will bring it to pass. And here's the cool thing that we're trying to help everybody understand. Not only is he going to instruct you, he's going to fulfill he says, I will bring it to pass, which means what? He can do things supernaturally.
Right.
That we can't do. He can change things. He can make things happen. He can fulfill things. He said, I will bring it to pass. And the key is, as you go down this path of the resolution, it begins with trust. Trust me, trust me, trust me.
And staying with him. That you look at verse 5, commit your way to the Lord. That's staying right there with him every step of the way.
Let's go to Psalm 40. We talked about this before we raised it up. This is when you're stuck in the mud. And stuck in the mud is, I can't figure this out. So go to Psalm 40. Let's see what he says. Read verses 1 through 5.
I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined to me and heard my cry. He drew me up from the pit of destruction, out of the miry bog, and set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. He put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord. Blessed is the man who makes the Lord his trust, who does not turn to the proud, to those who go astray after a lie. You have multiplied, O Lord my God, your wondrous deeds and your thoughts towards us. None can compare with you. I will proclaim and tell of them, yet they are more than can be told.
Yeah. So he says, I know you're stuck in the mud. What I'll do is, if you trust me, I'm going to deliver you from that. And he uses this beautiful analogy. He says, when you're stuck in the mud, you literally can't lift your feet, and you can't go anywhere, and the adversity is now just overwhelming you. He said, I understand that. If you trust me, he says, what am I going to do? I'm going to set your feet where?
On a rock.
On the rock. So, see, I'm going to take you, and this is really cool. I'm going to take you away from getting stuck to some place that's solid, that now you know that it's going to be resolved, and you have a joy about that. And then he says, from there, and it's really cool in the scriptures how they're so beautiful, from there you can start stepping.
Right.
So let me get you unstuck. Now I'm going to take you on a path, because you're free. You're free to walk when, as far as you can see, I'm in a double bind. I can't. No matter what I do, I'm gonna cause this not to work, or it's gonna fail, or if I do this, it's gonna maybe cause more problems over here, and that's why you're stuck. He said, well, let me get you on a rock, secure. Now you can start stepping.
And then we can walk.
Then you can walk. See, you can walk where? With me into the resolution. Because why? Well, you went to me, and you trusted me to give you these processes of, let me get you unstuck, and now let me have you walk into the resolution. Why? Because we trusted him. So it's a beautiful statement of what God has for us. Go to Psalm 71. It says it in another way, 1-5. Psalm 71, 1-5.
In you, O Lord, do I take refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your righteousness, deliver me and rescue me. Incline your ear to me and save me. Be to me a rock of refuge to which I may continually come. You have given the command to save me, for you are my rock and my fortress. Rescue me, O my God, from the hand of the wicked, from the grasp of the unjust and cruel man. For you, O Lord, are my hope, my trust, O Lord, from my youth.
Yep. So he's saying, I got a problem. And I'm struggling, and I'm vulnerable, and things aren't working out. And he says, I'm going to look to you to be my what? He uses a word in there, fortress. I'm going to look to you to be my fortress. Okay, what's a fortress?
A fortress is a level of protection. Even it surrounds something in order to protect what is inside.
Yeah. And implied here is when you're inside the fortress, they can't defeat you,
right?
Because it's not just you out there by yourself, which is easily defeated,
right?
But you're behind the strength of the fortress, and he says, "May you, God, be my fortress." I'm going to be behind you. So,
right.
It's a beautiful picture of, and this is kind of the way what trust looks like is we'll get behind God. Let him be in the front.
Yes.
He can handle it. Nobody's going to attack him. Well, let me get behind that. And okay, you go out there first.
Right.
And I'll just follow you, because he says, because why? I trusted you. It wasn't that, well, I tried to follow you and you left me alone. In other words, here I am. I'm trying to be behind you, and you went over here, exposing me to the problem, more in depth of the problem. No, I trust that you are the fortress at a level that nothing's going to keep you from resolving my issue, and I'll just stand behind you. Let me get behind you, and then I'll follow you into all you have to say and do.
And the only thing that takes us out of that is if we step out from behind the fortress.
Yeah, and it's
by our choice.
And again, think of the reason for that is, if I step out of it, in essence, what do I think?
That I know better, that I can handle it.
Because my expectation of God is what? He's not going to actually protect me.
Yeah.
So since he's not going to protect me, well, then I might as well try it myself and not be passive and say, well, okay, hope he does. And if he doesn't, I guess I'm really going to get, severe problems here. Since I don't trust that, well, then I'm going to go try to do it myself. At least I'll give it a good try. And sometimes maybe I can't, because in the natural, sometimes we do. But he says, no, trust me, I will be your fortress. Absolute 100%. Get behind me. I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to pave the way so that this obstacle, this problem, this issue you're having that's causing you fear and worry is going to be resolved. Stay with me, and we'll walk into it. So let's look at, this is interesting, as we try to illustrate this. We actually have a couple of illustrations. So let's go to Daniel chapter 6 and read verses 23 to 28. This is Daniel. This is a situation where, if you remember, and Daniel, remember, is over 70, 80 years of his life. So when we read the first 6 chapters, it talks about these tests that he had, he and his friends. We tend to think, because we read them, well, they all happened in about a month. Well, no, they happened over 60, 70 years. So that It wasn't all the time that they were faced with these severe tests, but rather they, over time, and they were promoted and they were blessed. They actually lived a really nice life. And remember,
Right.
and this is what we're trying to say, particularly when you if you follow our end time stuff, is the remnant, which is what they were defeated in Jerusalem.
Right.
They were captured. They
Right.
all of the things they were used to of worship and gathering together and the feast. And I don't know if you have any Jewish friends or Messianic Jews, but they've got 7 feasts during the year that they that they celebrate, and they know how to do it.
Right. Right.
It's part of their culture, is celebration of those feasts. Well, they couldn't do any of that. And he had to learn the foreign language. He had to learn the foreign customs. He had to learn all that. And God delivered to him, and this is what we're trying to say, the covenant life, despite the problems they had.
Right. Right.
I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing, and you can live a grand.
And despite living in the middle of Babylon,
Right.
where sin was so
Oh,
rampant
man.
and so many things looked different than what he knew was God's best.
That's
you
right.
know?
And the way you used to, yeah, I understand that. It's going to be different, but it's still going to be my life for you. Come and enjoy it and experience it. So they do. So Daniel, now in chapter 6, he's actually with a different king now, and the king has had favorable thoughts about him because he's such a wonderful leader. Daniel, I'm talking about. Well, the people come against him. His other advisors come against him and say, we got to trick Daniel and get the king to have a decree so we can get rid of Daniel. So he said, hey, king, if anybody does worship you and praise to somebody else, let's put him to death. The king signs it. Wasn't thinking about Daniel.
About who that would involve. Right.
He signs it, and then they come out with a new law. You can't worship your God. Okay, what does Daniel do?
He still continues to worship God.
He says, well, it doesn't matter what you as my authority is. And this is something that we've spent some time processing about, even the issue of, the vaccine and government authority, is that he says basically, yes, you follow the authority of that you're under, government, whatever. But if that violates the truth of who you are with me,
Right.
I'm going to ask you to stand against that and not
Right.
follow the authority of the local government or the government, and you follow what I've asked you to
Right.
do.
And ultimately, God is our final authority.
He's our final authority. So
Yeah.
he says, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go ahead and worship and keep praying, which he does, and they catch him. And okay, you got to be thrown in the lion's den. Now the king, who didn't want that to happen, he said, well, sorry, but I got to follow the law.
My hands are tied.
that I actually put in place. Sorry. I hope your God does something. But you're going to the lion's den. And when they threw somebody in the lion's den, interesting enough, it would be at dusk. And because that's when the lions particularly are ravenous, they threw them in, and then the next day they would go and pick up the remains and let the lions feast on the person they just threw in the lion's den, who's going to eat them all night. Okay, so that's the story. Okay, so here's where we are. Read Daniel 6:23-28.
Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. And the king commanded, and those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions, they, their children, and their wives. And before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth: Peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, For he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian.
Okay. Well, Daniel is thrown into the lion's den.
Mm-hmm.
It says he was preserved. Why?
Because God protected him.
And because Daniel did what? He trusted in
He
God.
trusted God, yes.
So he trusted in God that you've said, and you can resolve this awful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here it's facing, in a sense, sure death.
Mm-hmm.
It's not normal, logical that he would go in there and nothing would happen to him. He's going to get attacked and eaten, would be the general truth in the natural. So he said, first of all, I'm not going to change what I just did so that I am preserved. So he didn't compromise.
Right.
He didn't compromise and say, well, okay, since you're going to really carry this out, and that's going to cause me fear and worry, how about if I negotiated something different? Or how about if I relented on, okay, I won't do that anymore publicly?
Mm-hmm.
Will that satisfy you? You know, because why we go to, he could have gone to try to solve this himself.
Right.
Or it said, you know, I'm fretting and worrying about this, and it's bothering me, and I can't handle it. But it says no, because he trusted in God.
Mm-hmm.
God fulfilled. And think about it. In this case, the resolution to a real problem had to be done by who?
By God.
By God. Because in the natural, it would have been carried out. But the problem had to be resolved by God doing what? Shutting the lion's mouth.
Right.
And putting something there, so to speak, that there wasn't even an attempt. Because when he was pulled out, it wasn't like, well,
he wasn't even remotely harmed. No, nothing.
You're kind of clawed up, or you're bloody. Wow, it's great that you made it, but look, you know, we got to clean you up. It's no, wait a second, nothing happened to you, period.
Right.
Wow, that's amazing. And it was so overwhelming that King Darius, who, by the way, he's the one that caused the problem in the first place, in a sense, by signing it, said, I made a mistake. So all you guys that manipulated this, I'm throwing you in there. And by the way, what happened to them?
And they were immediately overpowered and eaten.
On their way down.
Yeah.
So it said the lions were waiting. And as they came down, they basically grabbed him and started eating at him and gnawing him at him in their mouths as they're coming down. He said, so it was immediate. Well, because of that, he says, Daniel's God is a God of one who brings resolution, God who protects. Right. Everybody, let's recognize that. Why? Well, because the evidence is there.
Right.
We see the evidence, and it's only because he trusted God, and he saw a resolution to a real problem. And so that's what we need to continue to understand, is that I'm going to bring resolution. And by the way, and this is what he's trying to say in all these verses, it'll be my work that I can do that I know you can't.
Right.
That's what you begin to trust, God's supernatural action.
And by the way, God has brought major glory in the midst of that, when he is given the opportunity to do what only he can do, and people bear witness of that.
Yeah. Okay. When you say that, what do you mean? God can get the glory for what?
Well, for delivering, for actually carrying things through. And I think that's why it's so important that we authentically share things as well. I think sometimes we, especially in today's world, we tend to muffle the things that we see and know that God is doing, that we have trusted him in. He's given us steps to take. And we tend to not want to offend somebody by not telling them that it was God. And so we change the story a little bit or tap it down so nobody thinks we're crazy. And really, if we just give God his credit and exalt him for what he did, then everyone sees him and they're drawn to him, just like King Darius was drawn. He's like, wow, that is proof that your God is who he says he is. So
Right.
when we live out loud, people know who he is and he's exalted, and they come to him. They want more of that.
Right. And think about what you just said. Why did King Darius respond in that way? Because he saw what?
He saw the proof.
Proof.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the proof? The proof is the real resolution of a real problem circumstantially.
Right.
That's the proof. That's what God.
It was solved supernaturally.
It was solved supernaturally, and that's why it has to be specific. It has to be resolution of my thing. Why? Well, that's where God fulfills himself of showing the world it's real.
Right.
What? Well, the deed that was fulfilled in reality, and it wasn't hypothetical, where Daniel says, well, I'm sorry that you're throwing me in, and I wish you weren't, but hey, I know God's going to take me home. Okay. Well, okay. He says that. He gets eaten. What would have been the response?
The lions ate him, and that was that. Because God didn't do anything about it.
He's just like any other person.
Right.
And I hope that what he said is true, that he's going to go and be with God, but who knows? And as far as we know, that doesn't really occur, because we believe something different. It doesn't really matter. Okay, fine. Well, in this case, what happened? Daniel's problem that you could see would cause fear, for sure, was resolved.
Right.
When it was resolved, it brought glory to God.
Right.
In reality, based on the real thing that happened. And that's when he says, see, I've come to give you life and give it to you super abundantly. It includes, in a great way, because of the way we live. In the world, you're going to have what?
Trouble.
When?
All the time.
All the time. See, and you can identify them. And this is what we call your unresolved issues list. Is at any point in time, likely you're going to have anywhere from 4 to 5 to 6, even as many as 15 to 20, that are things that, they're not resolved.
That are weighing you down and unresolved.
Well, they have to be resolved in reality. And that's what happened with Daniel. Is it really happened? It really was resolved in reality. Why? Because he trusted God. What do you have to say about this? I'm gonna save you. And then it happened. Okay, let's go look at a different example. This is an interesting one. First of all, let's start with set up the situation. 2 Kings 18, 1 to 8.
Okay. In the third year of Hoshea, how do you say that? Hoshea?
Hoshea.
In the third year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Abi, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that David his father had done. He removed the high places and broke the pillars and cut down the Asherah. He broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made, for until those days the people of Israel had made offerings to it. It was called Nehushtan. He trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel, so that there was none like him among all the kings of Judah after him, nor among those who were before him. For he held fast to the Lord. He did not depart from following him, but kept the commandments that the Lord commanded Moses. And the Lord was with him wherever he went. He prospered. He rebelled against the king of Assyria and would not serve him. He struck down the Philistines as far as the Gaza and its territory, from watchtower to fortified city.
Okay. So he's saying, and by the way, his dad was what's called was an evil king, and he was the one that set up all this worship to Baal. And Israel.
Yeah, there's all kinds of idol worship going on.
All kinds of idol worship, and his dad and mom actually were part of that, and um, uh, as a result, Israel has been having everything not work well. Their crops aren't doing well. Their vines aren't doing well. They're getting oppressed by the enemy. And it was a pattern of, if you followed me, I'm going to bless you. If you choose not to, you're subject to the influences of the world, and it's going to be bad for you. It's going to be difficult for you. And so it says Hezekiah, 25 years old, young man. It said, what did he do?
He got rid of all those idols and started following God.
Yeah, he did what was right by, well, I'll follow you and let you give me instruction to guide me, because why? I trust you. I see the difference where, because I live with my parents, and you know what? It didn't work out very well.
Right.
And I saw something. Now, this is interesting. If he was following God at age 25, okay, I'm gonna follow God, and I'm gonna do what's right in the eyes of the Lord. What did he know? What had he done as a young man?
At some point, he knew the ways of the Lord.
Okay, so he had abided, and okay, I gotta understand what it is that you are saying is right, because his own sense. And again, this is where I talk to people that actually, even though you're struggling with this, because you're seeking something new, your heart is carrying you to, wait a minute, I need to know more about this. And so Hezekiah, I mean, think about Hezekiah, because his parents weren't following it at all.
Right.
And they could have said, don't bother. He said, well, as far as I can see, something's not right here. I'm gonna go look at what does God have to say about this, because this is what we have. We have the Torah, and we have the prophets. I'm going to try to understand this. And he studied it. And when he became in rulership, he said, well, I don't want to live in all this adversity and trouble anymore that I see my parents living in. And I see the reason.
Right.
What's the reason? The reason is, which is what God has spoken to us, if you walk in the flesh, it's not going to go well for you. If you walk in the Spirit, I'll resolve things. I'll give you resolution. I'll give you abundant life. And he said, okay, I'm going to learn it. So he did what was right. I trusted what God was. Now, this is interesting. He was born in a situation where things aren't good.
Right.
Well, how did he trust God? He'd never seen it before.
Well, but he was walking with him, abiding in him, and letting God lead him.
Okay, and what did he learn? Because this is what he began to see. Is like, oh, when my forefathers, because remember, he's got the writings of David.
Right. Yeah. In fact, it even says that he looked, according to all David had done.
Yeah.
So he did have that example.
He went through it all. It's like, oh, I see something. Based upon what the word says, is that when they follow God, they got blessed.
Things went well.
When they didn't follow God, it didn't go well. Now, he'd never experienced that. But because he was willing to abide, he received a strength of that, is that, yes, son, it's true. Okay, well, then I'm going to come and see. And based upon his willingness of what he had heard and received, purely from receiving God's word, not from experience, because he hadn't experienced it. Well, I'm willing to go and do this, and I'm gonna do all what's right in the eyes of the Lord. And he did, because why? I trust. I'm gonna go see if this is really true. Guess what? He did it. What did he find out?
That it's true.
It's really true.
Yeah.
And he said he was blessed, and he had a chance to compromise. He didn't do it. No, I'm not surrendering to them. No, I'm not going to give in. I'm going to be willing to follow God. Okay.
Yeah, it said he held fast to the Lord. I love that picture.
And we're going to that's going to be one of the things that we're going to get into. What does it mean to hold fast to the Lord? We're going to actually get into the depth of that.
Good.
Okay, so he says, okay, I've learned this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, um, just because you learn it, does that mean it never happens again?
No.
No.
In fact, that's part of ingraining it and learning it more, is actually putting it into practice.
because, and this is important. He said, I experienced God's protection.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say, because I got to this point,
Mm-hmm.
I'm always going to be protected. Everything's going to be great. I never
Now I'm
have
just
to.
gonna coast.
I'll never have another problem again. And Jesus, reminds us, no. In the world, you're going to have what?
Trouble.
Trouble. Don't let your heart move into that trouble. Because why? What's going to happen? Okay, so we go to verse 17, chapter 18. Hezekiah has experienced, blessing. Hallelujah. He's excited. Well, let's see what happens. Go to 17 through 35. A little bit long, but it's worthy of reading.
All right. Yes, you are testing my pronunciation, so I'm just going to say it all with confidence and pretend I know how to say them.
You can even skip over them because that's not the important part of it. So if you want to skip over them, you can.
And the king of Assyria sent to Tartan the Rabsaris and the Rabshakeh with a great army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. And they went up and came to Jerusalem. When they arrived, they came and stood by the conduit of the upper pool, which is on the highway to the washer's field. And when they called for the king, there came out to them Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna, the secretary, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder. And the Rabshakeh said to them, Say to Hezekiah, Thus says the great king, the king of Assyria, On what do you rest this trust of yours? Do you think that mere words are strategy and power for war? In whom do you now trust that you have rebelled against me? Behold, you are trusting now in Egypt, that broken reed of a staff, which will pierce the hand of any man who leans on it. Such is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who trust in him. But if you say to me, We trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and altars Hezekiah has removed, saying to Judah and Jerusalem, You shall worship before this altar in Jerusalem? Come now, make a wager with my master, the king of Assyria. I will give you 2,000 horses if you are able on your part to set riders on them. How then can you repulse a single captain among the least of my master's servants when you trust in the Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? Moreover, is it written without the Lord that I have come up against this place to destroy it? The Lord said to me, Go up against this land and destroy it. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and Shebna, the son of Joah, said to Rabshakeh, Please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. Do not speak to us in language of Judah within the hearing of the people who are on the wall. But Rabshakeh said to them, Has my master sent me to speak these words to your master and to you, and not to the men sitting on the wall who are doomed with you to eat their own dung and drink their own urine? Then the Rabshakeh stood and called out in a loud voice in the language of Judah, Hear the word of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, Do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you out of my hand. Do not let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord by saying, The Lord will surely deliver us, and this city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, Make your peace with me and come out to me. Then each one of you will eat of his own vine and each one of his own fig tree, and each one of you will drink the water of his own cistern until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of grain and wine, a land of bread and vineyards, a land of olive trees and honey, that you may live and not die. And do not listen to Hezekiah when he misleads you by saying, The Lord will deliver us. Has any of the gods of the nation ever delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Iva? Have they discovered Samaria out of my hand? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who among all the gods of the lands have delivered their lands out of my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand?
Yeah. Okay. So the enemy and the basically are gathering together.
Mm-hmm.
And they've also observed something that, well, there's been attempts
Mm-hmm.
to take over Israel since Hezekiah became king.
Right.
They haven't succeeded. And they recognize that, well, because think about what they're saying here. They understand that he believes in his God, what he calls his God.
Right.
Well, yeah, he believes in his God, and that's why they're getting protected. And so, what does he come? A Sennacherib. What does he and his cohorts, the Rabshakeh, etc. How do they appeal to the people that are under the leadership of Hezekiah? Basically, as you read the story, what's their strategy?
To bring them to disbelief.
Yeah. Yes.
They have, has anybody else, have you seen these other countries? Has anybody ever been defeated or not been defeated by me? Of anybody I've come against, I have taken. So look at my track record and see if that really holds to what you think you believe.
Yeah. And don't let Hezekiah say, God will deliver us. Don't trust in God. Your God isn't going to do this, because a lot of people have prayed to quote their gods, which you had to read.
Right.
And they were defeated.
Right.
They didn't protect them. Their gods didn't protect them. Why do you think? And remember, their viewpoint is they don't have a sense that there is a God. It's just people have their own set of gods.
They don't see a difference between Hezekiah's God and all these other gods.
So you got your gods. They got their gods. We got our gods. You know what? None of that matters, because it's all about our power, and we can overrun you. And if I was you, and they said this is really interesting. Why don't you give up?
Right.
You can enjoy what you have today. It says your own food, your own cisterns, your own wine. And then I will come and take you away. And what am I going to take you to?
What is he going to take him to? His land.
I'm going to take him to a beautiful place that has vineyards and cattle and all that, just like your land.
Right.
Hey, you're not going to lose a thing. All you have to do is just surrender to me, and why don't you give up, and you'll enjoy what you got now, and you won't have any consternation. In other words, and this is interesting, they're coming against him. And what's the truth? Nobody's defeated him up to this point.
Right.
That's the truth. Okay, so the people are basically, we could be in trouble. This could turn out poorly. Man, this may not work, and they would go to worry and fear. Okay, so what is really the enemy trying to say to them? You don't need to have worry and fear. Just surrender to what I'm doing, and trust what I'm doing, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine, and do it this way. And so, as we look at the situation, that's how we look at things. Is that, well, it's if I would just give up and let things happen as they happen, I guess they'll turn out better, because it looks like if I fight this, or I change this, or even if I go to God, which he said, don't bother, it ain't going to work. And that's where a lot of believers are, is why bother? I've been already convinced. Don't say that God's going to deliver you. No, he's not. And what do we say? Yeah, I kind of know that, because I haven't been delivered.
Right.
I guess that's true. So why bother? And that's the whole point. Okay, let's finish this story. Go to 19, verses 1 to 7.
As soon as King Hezekiah heard it, he tore his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went into the house of the Lord. And he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, and Shebna the secretary, and the senior priest, covered with sackcloth, to the prophet Isaiah, the son of Amoz. They said to him, Thus says Hezekiah, this day is a day of distress, of rebuke, and of disgrace. Children have come to the point of birth, and there is no strength to bring them forth. It may be that the Lord your God heard all the words of Rabshakeh, whom his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to mock the living God, and will rebuke the words that the Lord your God has heard. Therefore, lift up your prayer for the remnant that is left. When the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah, Isaiah said to them, say to your master, thus says the Lord, do not be afraid because of the words that you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have reviled me. Behold, I will put a spirit in him, so that he shall hear a rumor and return to his own land, and I will make him fall by the sword in his own land.
Okay. So God's response to that,
Mm-hmm.
I know you're being encouraged to don't trust me, don't follow me. You think I'm not going to deliver you. What's God's response to that?
That he's got a plan.
I'm going to do it.
Don't be afraid. I've got a plan.
Do not be afraid. Trust me. Mm-hmm. I will resolve this. Yeah. Trust me, I will resolve this. He says, I know that you're worried and fearful. I know that you're thinking, I'm not going to do this. You're not sure if I'm going to do this. And it looks like the enemy is way, way, way stronger than you, and they've never been defeated. Mm-hmm. So this situation you're facing, it looks impossible. I get it. Mm-hmm. And I know your tendency is, well, in impossible situations, probably it's not going to work, so I guess I just give up and try to do the best job I can and follow what I can to minimize the problem. Mm-hmm. And God said, no, you can trust me. And I'm giving you a word, and this is why you can trust me. The good news is, what did Hezekiah do? Well,
he did trust him.
Let's go seek God. Let's go seek God. Okay, all right. I heard all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Let's go seek God. And what's the question, which is what we keep saying over and over again? Father, what do you got to say about this?
What do you have to say?
What do you have to say about this? God said, I'll take care of it. Okay, now we're out of time today. We'll pick this up tomorrow. We'll tell the end of the story. Hang on. We're at a cliffhanger. What happened? We're going to find out. So the appeal is don't bother. Mm-hmm. God isn't doing this, hasn't done it. It ain't going to happen. You'd be better off cooperating with the problem and fixing see what you can do to minimize the problem, so you could, even though you're going to be carried away, but it'll still be okay. But Hezekiah says, well, let's go to God and say, what do you have to say about this? Given that there is a concern, are you truly going to do something for us? That's what we got to go find out and believe, and that's all based on trust. So we encourage you to stay with it, realize these examples are real, and God says, well, you got to learn to walk with me. And God is saying to us, well, why don't you at least come and ask me to speak to this, as opposed to already saying, what difference does it make? At least come that far, and then let me take you further, which is what we're going to do. So we'll continue this tomorrow.
This is a fun example. I like that we're working through this one.
Yeah, it is a good one. So we will see you tomorrow as we work more on this.
Sounds great. If you enjoyed today, have a friend, or be a friend.
Have a friend. Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good to have a friend.
Have a friend too. Anyway, share the podcast with your friends, everybody. Be a friend and tell a friend.
We're gonna really get in the depth of this, and everybody that you know has a problem with worry and fear, and so I encourage them to come and listen, because we're going to really walk through the depth of this, and we're going to come to a point where you're going to see it actually is you can get things resolved, which is what we trust.
Yeah,
so,
and we're going to celebrate that alongside you as God does
absolutely this. Are. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.